So this is an iPhone 14 Pro, and in today's tech tip, I'll be sharing with you a few battery saving tips for your iPhone 14. Now, I'm using the iPhone 14 Pro, but most of the tips I share here are applicable to the regular iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Plus. And of course, as a reference, I've been using my iPhone 13 for the last 1 year, and I still have 100% battery health. And that's because the more you take care of your battery, the more battery life you have to use for the important stuff. And also, that helps with the overall battery health of your iPhone 14. So the first thing you're going to do on the iPhone 14 Pro, and this might not be applicable to the other iPhone 14 models, is disabling the always on display. So the iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max have an always on display such that when you lock the screen doesn't really lock completely. So you can see the time, the date, and the weather in an always on display format. But also on these iPhones, you can see the entire wallpaper in your always on display. And that is sure to drain some of your battery, even though experiments have been done to show that it only drains 6% of the battery. But I think that is subjective to how much you use your phone, how long your phone is in your pocket or in a place where the always on display doesn't show, how long you place your phone on surfaces. That is subjective, but it sure drains more battery life than it needs to. So to turn off the always on display, simply go to settings. Under settings, go to display and brightness, tap on that, and then under display and brightness, go ahead and disable always on. So now when you lock your screen, it goes completely black and off like it used to. Secondly is to enable dark mode. Now the default iOS interface on your iPhone is this black text and white background kind of interface, and this one drains a lot of battery life, especially if you turn your brightness all the way up. This screen is extremely bright and it's definitely going to drain your battery faster. So if you enable always on display by going to settings and then going back to display and brightness and then selecting dark, that enables dark mode, and all the bright pixels that were there become black and most of them are going to be turned off, and that should save you a ton of battery life. In fact, most of the apps that are compatible with iOS dark mode will also go into dark mode automatically. The health app, the Apple Music app, and even third-party apps like Google Maps will go into dark mode automatically. So dark mode really helps you save a ton of battery life. Number three is to develop a habit of closing applications. Now, the iPhones have very powerful processors. iPhone 14 and 14 Plus still have the A15 Bionic, but the Pro and the Pro Max have the A16 Bionic. Now, all these are extremely powerful processors, and also coupled with iOS, you can have tons of apps running in the background, and you might not even notice because the phone never gets slow or laggy. It's still quick and snappy, as if it was not running any apps in the background. And while that is a good thing, it also means you might have so many apps running in the background and not feeling, but these apps are still draining a lot of battery life. So if you have 10, 15, 20 apps running in the background, the iPhone will still run smoothly, but it's draining more battery than it should. So make a habit of closing background apps at least once a day. So maybe before you go to sleep or sometime during the day, you can set an alarm for it. Simply go into multitasking mode and then view all the apps you don't need running in the background, which I think you don't need most of them, and go ahead and close all the apps running in the background. That will save you a ton of battery life and overall battery health of your iPhone 14. Number four is to disable 120 Hz ProMotion display refresh rate. So the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, just like the 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max, have a ProMotion display that can go all the way to 120 Hz. And although these displays have been improved in the iPhone 14 to go to a minimum refresh rate of 1 Hz, they can still drain your battery when the refresh rate goes to 120 hertz or in that neighborhood, especially when you don't need a high refresh rate. So if you want to save some battery, you can cap the refresh rate of your display to 60 hertz. And to do that, simply go to settings and then go to accessibility. And then under accessibility, tap on motion and then enable limit frame rate. So this will limit the frame rate to 60, and that means you're going to save a ton of battery life. Now, also while you're at it, you can reduce the animations as you scroll through the interface by enabling reduce motion. When you enable that, most of the animations of the interface, that is iOS 16 or 15 or even later versions, are going to be reduced significantly, thus improving your battery life. Number 5 is to adjust the auto lock, or rather screen timeout for most phones. On the iPhone, it's called auto lock. So when you're not using your iPhone, it's going to take some time of inactivity before it automatically locks the screen and turns off that screen. Now, there's a default amount of time it takes, so you can adjust that screen time on period and have it at a shorter time so that you don't have to have your screen on unnecessarily. So to do that, simply go to settings. Under settings, go to display and brightness, tap on that. And then under display and brightness, go to auto lock. You can see mine is currently set to 5 minutes. And that is not good if you're trying to save battery, but of course it's good for making of these videos. So for normal people who don't make tutorials, you want to set it at the minimum time possible. For some people, 30 seconds might be too short, so you might want a minute. But I'll leave it at 30 seconds for maximum returns. And once you set it at that, anytime you're not using your screen for 30 seconds, your screen will automatically shut down and lock your screen. And that obviously will save you some battery life. The next thing is to enable automatic screen brightness. Now, sometimes you might have your screen bright for no reason. Maybe you don't even need that amount of brightness. And sometimes you need it bright. And of course, you have this toggle in the control center that you can use to adjust the screen brightness. But sometimes you might forget to do that. So the best thing to do is to enable automatic screen brightness so the phone can use its sensors to determine the ambient lighting and always give you the optimum screen brightness that is required. So to enable automatic screen brightness, go to settings. Under settings, go to accessibility. And then under accessibility, go to display and text size, tap on that. And then if you scroll down, you should find auto brightness, enable auto brightness just like that. And that should enable automatic brightness for your iPhone. So from now on, when you're in a place that does not require a bright screen, the brightness will be toned down automatically. That should help with your battery life. And also, while you're still in that auto brightness setting, at the top there, you should find an option to reduce white point. So basically what this does is it will reduce the intensity of bright colors on your screen. So as you can see, mine has been drastically reduced. I can continue reducing by increasing that, or I can tone it down and increase some white points. So you can adjust this to suit your personal preferences. Now for me currently, I like to leave that disabled, but if you're so keen on that, then you can go ahead and enable it from there. Next is location services. So if you go to your iPhone's settings and then scroll down to privacy, you should find location services, tap on that, and now you can see all the apps that have access to your location. Now, obviously, you have a kill switch at the top where you can disable that, and all the apps will not have access to your location, which is the best case scenario if you're trying to save as much battery as possible. But it's not practical because some apps do require your location. Apps like Bolt and other taxi hailing services do require your location. Apps like Find My require your location. Google Maps, all these apps require your location. So the best thing to do here is go app by app and give or deny permission to your location on an app by app basis. because obviously the more apps that are accessing your location, the more they drain your battery. So go to apps like Bolt, which need your location. This is a taxi hailing service. Select while using the app. And that basically means only when you're using the app will the app be able to access your location. Now, if you have an app like Google Maps, for instance, you can also choose while using the app. But sometimes when you're sharing your live location and you want to use Google Maps in the background, you might want to enable always so you can share your location with someone or maybe even get directions to a certain place without Google Maps necessarily being the active application. So different apps use your location differently, and it's important to go through each of the apps on your phone and give them permissions accordingly to save as much battery as you can. And those for me are my top battery saving tips for the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, and also for the other regular iPhone 14s. Now, if you want a longer list of these tips, then let me know in the comment section below. But those are my favorite tips, and those are the tips that will save you the most battery life. And then, of course, in return, also extending the battery health of your iPhone 14. In fact, if you have other tips, then feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. But thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.